Yeah, they know when they've pushed you too far. And they know when they need to kind of backstep just a little bit. But here's the thing, when they do sense that they've pushed too far, they will be nice for a while, but that niceness is not sincere. There is always something for them to gain out of it. They don't do anything unless it benefits them. So their being nice to you is for their benefit, not that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Ability Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today's episode is very different than usual. It's going to be a difficult conversation, but it's also going to help a lot of people. So with that being said, I do have my best friend and business partner, Kyle Swanson, on this podcast episode because he's dealt with some similar situations as Mia Hanks has, who is our guest. And she's got a lot of insight, and she can really help a lot of people. So, Mia, can you tell us a little bit of your story and what you do?
Yes. So I'm Mia Hanks. I'm a survivor of narcissistic abuse. I was married to a covert narcissist for 29 years. And I was able to finally come to the realization that what was happening in my life and in my marriage was abuse. It took a long, long time to figure it out. It was a very complicated process, and a lot of complicated psychology that went into that. I was finally able to get out after 29 years, and I decided, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I decided that I would like to try writing a book. I don't consider myself a writer, but I really felt like when I was going through all of towards the end of my marriage, and I was doing a lot of research about narcissism, I found a lot of great information and a lot of good books, but they were all very academic, and they were all written by therapists, psychologists who had a lot of knowledge about narcissistic personality disorder, but they had never lived it. So I couldn't find much out there with regard to like a memoir. So that's what I decided to do. I started, jotting down different stories, different things I would tell if I ever did decide to put it into a book. And over time, it just kind of evolved into a book of kind of short stories. Chronologically, and it just starts from the beginning of when I met my ex-husband all the way until I got a divorce. So I'm really hoping that, the book will help spread some awareness about narcissistic personality disorder. I think it's something that's just now kind of coming to the forefront. It's not something that was ever really talked about. So it's getting a little bit of, there's a little bit of talking going on about it now. And I just think there needs to be more awareness so that people have a better idea of, what they might be getting into. And if they're in the thick of this, to be able to know how to get help, how to get out. It's quite complicated. So that's kind of the story of how my book came to be. And I just, I really want to spread awareness about this. I think it's a very important topic.
Are you writing the book, or have you published it?
I just published it in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. I hope it lands on the right hands, and the right people that need to see it can find it. Yeah.
So you said there's a lot of your experiences in that book. So how many pages is it? Just give or take.
I think it's around 125 pages. It's basically just, it's kind of a set of short stories, different little, I go all the way from just describing what life is like day to day, just simple little things with a narcissist, all the way to talking about some of the more dramatic events that happened. But mostly just, I want people to know what day-to-day life looks like, because that's what I was searching for when I was doing all my research, and you just couldn't find that. I could find a lot of things about, from a therapist standpoint, but not from a victim standpoint. So that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So I guess my own question I had around that is, you said you kind of had it from the beginning of your marriage to the end of it. So my assumption is you don't have all of your experiences is in the book.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Just I kind of hit the high points, the ones that I thought would really illustrate.
Yep.
Yeah, that would resonate with the audience, definitely. But I mean, it was constant.
I guess what I was getting at is, if you had a guesstimate, if you basically put a narrative of all the bad events and everything in there, how big do you think the book would have been then?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been pretty big. In my situation, it took me so long to realize what was happening. And so much of what happened kind of just ran together. It became a way of life. So things that really didn't seem like, abuse, to me, maybe it was, but everything became so commonplace, and I normalized all of it. So, and that's not to say that there were never good times. I mean, there were, there were a lot of good days. And that was one of the problems that I ran into when I left, because I dealt with so much guilt. And one thing I kept saying is, not every day was bad. And I was trying to almost make a math equation out of it. It was like, well, if a good day cancels out a bad day. And I really had to work to make myself understand that that's not true. A good day does not cancel out a bad day. And so that was a kind of a mountain I had to climb to come to that realization. But yeah, definitely. I mean, there were plenty of good times, but it doesn't make up for the trauma.
Yep, exactly. The good times, I'm assuming in your relationship also, were more plentiful at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah, I would say so. I think, coming into the relationship, I was young. I was 21 years old when I got married. And I think that, it's very naive. So red flags at the beginning, I didn't see them as red flags. I thought, well, it must be normal. And that's just kind of how I went with the flow. And narcissism with a narcissist, it doesn't turn bad overnight. It's kind of a snowball effect. So before you realize what you're into, you're really, you're really caught in it before you have any idea that something might be off. They're very deceptive.
Yep. So, Mia, do you have like a definition of what a narcissist is for the audience?
I don't, but let me. I do have something interesting
what
here.
What does it mean to you?
Oh, what does it mean to me?
Yeah, because I think that's better from your standpoint than like what you can Google.
True. Yeah. So to me, a narcissist. Well, let me back up. All of us have narcissistic tendencies as humans. Everybody has narcissistic tendencies. So it is a phrase. It is a word that is overused. So I think for the purposes of our conversation, we're not talking about just somebody who's arrogant or somebody who, thinks they're really great. This is more along the lines of what's called narcissistic personality disorder, which is actually, like a disorder. So what that means to me, that's somebody who has little to no empathy. In my case, my ex-husband, I don't think he was capable of empathy. But they have little to no empathy. And they, the world revolves around them. Everything that happens to them, they can't see things from other people's perspectives. They can't step inside someone else's shoes. They only see things for how those things relate to them. How do those things make them feel? Everything is about them. So that would be the best way that I could describe it, is lack of empathy, and the whole world revolves around them.
Yeah, very self-centered. Like
Very
they're
much.
the center and the shining star of the universe.
Yes, yes, and everything is for them and about them, and they
And if
can't
it's
take a
not, then
step
it's
back.
against them.
That's right. If it's either all about them or it's you're the enemy. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I was talking to a potential other guest that we're going to have on our podcast earlier. I was talking to him about actually coming on to this show, and he kind of briefly described about like it being focused on a narcissistic relationship. And he's like, oh yeah, so it's kind of like how you said the good days don't cancel out bad days. So he kind of described it as like a roller coaster, how like they would be at like
Yes.
a high point, and then everything would be like okay, and those would be like the good days, and then like something bad, even if it's out of anyone's controls, and then the roller coaster comes down, and it's a bad day, and they're taking it out on you, and there's nothing that you can do right, even if you did the same things that you did on the good days, and you're going to do the same actions, and then you'd be wrong on the bad days.
Exactly. And they can't ever be satisfied. I mean, the thing about a narcissist is you can't ever do enough.
Yep. And then eventually you keep trying to do more and more and more, and you go lower and lower and lower.
Yes.
And then eventually they kind of start to realize more probably less because you're just so like damaged. They're like, oh, maybe it's like almost like they start to feel bad, and then they'll kind of, it'll kind of start going back up again.
Exactly. They know
like,
when they've pushed you.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, they know when they've pushed you too far. And they know
great,
when they
exactly.
need to kind of backstep just a little bit. But here's the thing: when they do sense that they've pushed too far, they will be nice for a while, but that niceness is not sincere. There is always something for them to gain out of it. They don't do anything unless it benefits them. So their being nice to you is for their benefit, not that they feel bad or that they're really sincerely sorry.
Yeah, there's an underlying motive to their niceness, and it's not out of compassion or even like goodwill or would say kindness. Yeah,
another thing you'll hear with narcissists is that their gift giving has strings attached always. And if they give you a gift, you probably don't want it, because they don't give you a gift just to be nice. They give you a gift to get something in return.
Yep. So I'm trying to think of my relationship. I love giving gifts myself, to like Nick and my family, other people. Like that's definitely one of my love languages is like gift giving.
Yes.
But and like you said, like if you would get like a gift from them, it's almost like there would be like a string attached, or you just wouldn't really even get a gift.
Right. I mean, if you get something, if they give you a gift, there's motive behind it. So it kind of makes you not want to accept a gift from them, really, because you think, well, now, what does this mean? What's the motive here? Yeah, for sure.
So what have you done besides the book? Have you done anything else to help others with that have suffered or have suffered with narcissistic relationships?
Yeah, I've been guesting on a lot of podcasts, and since my book came out in February, I've just been mainly doing podcast guest spots, and I've really enjoyed it. I think it's led to some very interesting conversation. Each host always has kind of a different set of questions, and it's been therapeutic too. I think it's good to talk about this stuff, as uncomfortable as it is. There's something to be gained from talking about it, and then feeling like maybe what you've said might resonate with someone else and it might help them. I also have a TikTok account where I post a lot of information about narcissistic personality disorder, and I've been very surprised at how many people are active on my page, and they're commenting every day. People saying, I'm in this kind of relationship. I'm stuck. I don't know how to get out. I need help. There are a lot of people out there that are in these situations and they're wanting out, and there's even more people that are in these situations that don't even know it. And that's the really sad part. But there are a lot of people out there that are quite literally stuck or feel stuck, and they can't get out of these things because of the level of control. And honestly, for a lot of people, I think women especially, they get trapped in these relationships due to financial abuse. The narcissist always controls all the money. And, no matter how wealthy they might be, if the wife has no access, which was kind of my situation, they control all the money. And if you can't access funds, I mean, how can you leave? You can't go get an apartment. What can you do? So a lot of people end up stuck just based on the financial abuse side of it. And it's really sad.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost also, you kind of think back in the early days, how, men were in charge of like all the money, and they made the money in the family. But that was
Right.
back when you could easily survive with a single income earner in a household.
Right.
Nowadays, it's not usually the case.
Yeah.
So if you have two people that are earning income, and you still only have one person controlling the money, and that's not like a mutually agreed upon agreement.
Right.
Like that both parties are understand, like, okay, like you can take care of the money because you're way better with it, and there's like a actual plan in place. Like that's
I
a lot
think
different than no, like you don't need to touch the money, like it's okay.
I think in my case, and probably a lot of other women might agree that, I just didn't think that I didn't know a lot about what I had access to or what I didn't, because I didn't think it would ever come to that. I just didn't think I ever needed to know that. And I didn't pay a lot of attention. I really didn't. And it wasn't until I left that I came to the realization that, all I've got access to is this joint everyday, checking account. I don't have access to any of the savings. And it was never anything I thought about because I never thought I would need to. And then it became a reality, and I realized, oh wow, this is interesting, because the first thing, kind of skipping ahead, that like when you leave a narcissist, it's not a pretty sight. They don't take it well. Because, you are, you've kind of embarrassed them, really. You've told them no. And, then the financial abuse can really start, because the first thing they're going to want to do, in my case, is they want to cut you off financially so that you have to come back.
They're going to want to hurt you as badly as they can in order they think that the pain will make you, like the pain will make you want to stop getting hurt and come back to them.
And just come back. Right. And I think that's probably really typical of what they'll do. I mean, draining bank accounts so that you don't have any money. So what are you going to do? You're going to go back. So I think that is happening way too much out there. And I think there are just way too many women, especially, that are trapped in these relationships because of finances. And it's just really sad.
What are some of the really good tips or techniques you have for these people stuck in these horrible relationships in order to either get out of them or improve them?
I think I would say, first of all, it's not something that you do on a whim, and as far as improving them goes, unfortunately there's not a cure for narcissistic personality disorder. With the nature of being a narcissist, they're not self-aware. They're not going to get diagnosed. They're not, most of the time, they don't think there's anything wrong with them. And interestingly enough, narcissists tend to get worse with age. So most of the time, these situations don't ever get better. They get worse. And that was the case with me. It got worse to the point that, I'm like, okay, this is just not right. I mean, something is not right. But as far as actually getting out, I think it requires some planning. It's not something you just jump into, because it's not necessarily a safe thing if you don't really know what you're doing and if you don't have a plan. But
especially if they're physically abusive,
right, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different component to it. But they can become volatile when you leave. But I would say, for anybody that's contemplating it, really make a plan. And it sounds crazy. I mean, it sounds like you're planning an escape, but kind of you are. Yep. I would say, you need cash, you need money.
Yep.
And I think a very simple tip that I always like to, when I get asked this question is, when you go to the grocery store, get cash back every time you go to the grocery store, and start, buy gift cards, things that can't really be traced. You've got to stockpile some funds. You just have to. Another thing is, think about how you're going to go about retrieving your important documents. Go ahead and get those documents, your birth certificate, your social security card. Go ahead and figure out how you're going to get your hands on those documents and things like that. Just plan, and the other thing you need to do is amass some sort of support group. It doesn't have to be 50 people. It can be one person. It can be 2 people, but find somebody that can, because getting out, I think, by yourself is nearly impossible. You really need at least one other person that's going to be in your corner.
Yeah, because if you don't have someone in your corner, you're gonna, even if you do manage to get out, when they start coming at you and hurting you, you're not gonna have anyone else telling you, oh yeah, no, they're like, don't you see, like, it's this, they're just showing their true colors, not like, instead of you thinking like, oh, like maybe I made a mistake and I'll go back and they'll change.
Right. I mean, they'll guilt you, and I read somewhere that it takes the average person, it takes them 7 tries to leave an abusive spouse or abusive partner. 7 tries. That's a lot. But the thing with a narcissist is, I think, if you do get guilted into going back, I think a lot of those times you probably don't get out again, because once you've gone back, they've won.
Yep.
And then, it's probably going to be really great. Life's going to be great for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then, they know they got you back once, they're going to get you back again.
Ring any bells, Nick?
Yep.
Yeah, Nick saw me go through that, yeah.
Yeah.
I was the person in his corner.
Yep.
Who else?
Tell me to not to, but I learned the hard way again.
You've got to have that person. Yes, and you again. Do. Yeah, you really do. Without a little bit of reinforcement, I mean, these narcissists will have you so broken down that without that other person, as your reinforcement, without a support group, it's very easy for them to get you to come back, because you are so gaslit, and you are so trauma bonded that they can guilt you.
Yep. So, Mia, I want to know if you have any advice for someone who either has a friend or a family member who's in a narcissistic relationship, but that person just can't see it.
That's really hard. And that was kind of the situation I was in. My parents saw it. And as time went on, they saw it more and more. And the problem you run into there, and at least how I was, I was what you would call trauma bonded, which is basically the same thing as Stockholm syndrome.
Yep.
And so when they would try to bring it to my attention, hey, I think this really is not, you need to really look at what's going on here. My response 100% of the time was to defend my husband.
Yep.
Because
that's normal.
It's normal. Well, you're conditioned, you are basically taught to, it became a job, you just defend him. And so I would make excuses for him. Well, he's has a stressful job and he's having a stressful time at work. He's having a bad day. And yeah, it's nearly impossible to get through to somebody when they're that trauma bonded. And so I think for family members and friends that are, that are watching this happen before their eyes, I think for starters, they have to realize, they have to understand the concept of Stockholm syndrome. Because it can be really frustrating for family and friends that are watching this and saying, can't you see this? But the answer is no, they can't. So I don't know. It's
like
tough.
Frog. It's like the frog in the boiling water.
In the boiling water. That's exactly what it is. And you can't see it when you're in the thick of it. So I would say for those people, you've got to be patient with this person that is a victim. And, somehow they've got to come to the realization on their own. And sometimes that doesn't happen, sadly. But yeah, I would say, those people, the family and friends, you just have to realize that this trauma bond is, it's scary, and it is Stockholm syndrome, and it is brainwashing, and it's not that easy to just, wake up one day and say, yeah, I think I need to leave. It's a process.
Do you have any tips or advice for people going through this that have children in the relationship?
That's really tough. I have 2 children, and both of my kids have graduated high school. They graduated high school before I left, so they were, both adults. And so that's something that I don't really have any experience with. And it's a whole different element, I've heard that family court with a narcissist it's not fun.
Yes.
Unfortunately, unfortunately judges a lot of times are just not well versed in narcissistic personality disorder. And these guys can go in and charm the judge, charm the lawyers, and, it doesn't always go your way. So that's very complicated. However, that being said, I think, probably part of the reason I stayed as long as I did, and there were a lot of reasons I stayed, but one of the reasons was I really didn't want to share custody of my kids, and you're kind of told I kind of felt from a young age, you don't break up your family.
Yep, I agree.
And so, there was kind of some guilt about that. However, in retrospect, it would have been a better option for me to leave sooner. It would have been better for my kids had I left sooner. Even though there would have been, absolutely, yeah. Even though there would have been custody issues, and we'd go to family court, and that would have been, very messy. I think that, I regret that I stayed in that relationship as long as I did. I think, it affected my kids. Didn't get to see what a normal, at least they had their grandparents, thank goodness, but they didn't get to see what a normal marriage looked like.
Or a healthy marriage.
Or, it just wasn't healthy. Yep. So not that they, they never saw fighting or anything like that. It was all very under the radar, but nonetheless, they didn't get to witness what actually a healthy marriage looks like. And so if I had it to do over again, I would have said, I really don't want to share custody, but I think it's better for the kids to leave and, and just do joint custody. But
how do your kids feel about it? Of course. How do your kids feel about it now that you're separated?
Interestingly enough, they both said, that, they wished I would have done it sooner. My kids are much, of course they're adults now, so they they have a different perspective. But I would say my relationship with both of my kids is better now. And awesome. I think that they just seem more well adjusted now. I don't think there was any downside to the divorce, for them at all. I think it was only positive.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in my own relationship, I have 4 and 8-year-old daughters, so it was very, very messy in family court.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's the story I hear over and over again, that, judges and lawyers, a lot of times just, they don't get it. They fall for these narcissists and fall right into the trap. And it does make family court kind of a nightmare.
I agree. What I would suggest to anyone out there contemplating this and with children is something very good for the legal system is documentation. So start documenting, recording, and documenting everything. I have a calendar, or Nick actually bought me a calendar, like a journal size, like just normal notebook size calendar. Yeah. And it's just filled with events and like notes of like hers taking off with the kids when she's not supposed to, and this and that, and throughout our whole divorce proceeding. My whole legal battle was probably a good 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. Yeah, those calendars can almost serve as like a journal. You've got
and it's good. Yep, it's a little therapeutic for sure.
It is.
I also have voice recordings. Like when she's quote having a bad day, but we both know that's pretty normal. That's more or less like one side of them. I think
Basically,
there's a
that means that just having a bad day generally means to a narcissist, it means they didn't get their way.
Exactly.
I think some way or another, at some point in the day, somebody told them no, or they did not get their way. That's what that
call was about, wasn't it, Nick? I was recording that one.
Yeah. If you tell them no, that's right. They've been wronged, and it's interesting. Narcissists are interesting because I heard another therapist describe it as like a pendulum, and they're either the greatest, most amazing person, and everybody wants to be them, and everybody's jealous of them, or they are the ultimate victim, and everybody should feel sorry for them, and everybody has been so terrible to them. And it just swings from one extreme to the other.
Definitely. I know, like direct verbiage actually is, like we were talking about how they're so very self-centered. It's something that I have like on recorded, like I had to play it in court like twice actually. It was pretty ridiculous. She said, if you don't treat me like the goddess I am, you're not going to be seeing your kids.
That's, that's pretty bold. Yeah, she kind of called herself out on that one.
Yeah.
Wow. But it does sound like a true narcissistic statement.
I did end up getting full custody though, so sole custody. So I was very, very pleased about that.
You got very lucky. I think a lot of people don't. It doesn't end that well for a lot of people. So you should be very thankful. That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Mia, do you have any last, words of wisdom, tips that you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, I think if I could share some, I guess, kind of the main point that I would like to convey is that a lot of people out there feel like they are stuck in these relationships, but I think one thing you need to realize is, as bad as it seems and as stuck as you feel like you might be, you can always get out. There is always a path out. And, even if it's not, even if it means going to a shelter, and for some people, that is their only option. You can always find a way out. It is, you do not have to stay stuck. I think far too many people think, I've either been in this relationship for so long and there's no way out of it. I'm too invested. I'm too tangled up. You can always unwind it. It is possible.
Yeah. Sometimes starting at ground zero is better than living underground.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And something that I would like to add is, some situations you're just going to have to up and leave.
Yeah.
So don't worry about stuff like your belongings.
That's very true. Yeah. I mean, you've got to realize that your life is more, your stuff can be replaceable. It's replaceable, but your life is not. So if you have to leave your stuff, I mean, of course you don't want to, but, at the end of the day, it's your life that you can't replace.
Also, like you said, it's very important to have those people in your corner. So,
yes.
If you have 2 or 3 people over to come grab your stuff, makes it a lot smoother than if you just, you know that you're going to leave. You can't just up and leave and start taking trips, and that's not going to work out good. But if you have people there to supervise, or maybe even just like the police, if that goes that far, that's
right.
That's
somebody to help, because, generally you shouldn't make a big announcement to a narcissist that, hey, I'm going to leave. That's not smart. It really needs to be done, kind of in secret. You really have to plan and plot in secret, and don't ever let them know. Don't give up your plans to them. You really do have to be kind of sneaky. Because if they find out what you're doing, I mean, they will find a way to get you back.
Yep.
So it's
Or they'll
best
find a way to
if you
sabotage
can,
your plans.
or sabotage your plans, or just guilt you. It's just not a safe thing for them to know. Don't make a big announcement. Try to do it quietly. Because you really are planning an escape. I mean, it is an escape. As much as you don't want to think that, surely it's not that dramatic. Kind of it is. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been very helpful for a lot of people.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for coming on. And would you like people to find your, TikTok page or anything like that?
Yeah, my TikTok is at NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. NPD and me. That's my TikTok. And my book is called Bridemaid, a memoir. And it's available online, basically everywhere books are sold. Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Target.
Yeah, we'll definitely put a link to your book in the description or in the notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, perfect. It's available in paperback and ebook.
Awesome.
So, Mia, I got one more question for you.
Okay.
And that is, so our slogan is, your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
Ooh, I like that. I think that means that you have the ability to do whatever you put your mind to. And if it's getting out of an abusive relationship, I mean, it might be difficult. Of course it's difficult, but your abilities are infinite, right? You can, whatever you set your mind to, you can make it happen.
Yep. Beautiful. And then, Kyle, since I got you on, what does our slogan mean to you?
I knew it was coming. I was going to ask, since I'm a guest now.
Yep.
So I like to think of it as not limiting yourself at all. So when we say your abilities are infinite, we don't mean your one specific ability at all. So this can be mental, this could be physical, this is emotional, this is your relationships. So since we're talking about relationships, your relationships, all of them should be infinite. They should always be growing. They should always be improving. Signs of a healthy relationship are you're constantly wanting to improve with each other. Not everything that we've been talking about this whole episode, but things that you want in the future are spoken, and those are things that you work towards together.
Very good.
Always improving.
Yes.
I love it. All right, guys, this has been really good and really helpful again. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Yeah.
Love to be on.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me here, the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors. So let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone. Remember, your abilities are infinite.